Hello everybody and welcome back to Starcraft 2. Today we are going to be having the Knight, a red Terran up here at the top left, fighting nugsboyten down here at the bottom right as our yellow Terran. Now, this is another game from the Shoe Shiner Fight Night. Again, if you'd like to join that Discord and join in on the Fight Nights, there will be a link in the description. Now, what I know about both these players is, if I'm not mistaken, they're both pretty low level. Now, if I'm incorrect with that, don't be offended. I'm just pretty sure that's the case because I know that Nugs did a 1v1 against my wife, Nat Baca, recently. And she had just started the game. So that's why we picked Nugs to go against her. So I can only assume that that also means that the Knight is going to be also pretty low level here. We'll have to see. However, we did get a really early gas from the Knight, so I'm interested to see what he plans on doing with that. If there even is a plan, we'll have to see. Nugs was a little bit more standard. I think it came down after the barracks, which is pretty standard. We do have a bunch of SCVs just chilling here by the geyser, though, and no SCVs being made. So I think that might be because he wants to put down a command center. So when Nugs asked me to cast one of his games, he wanted me to potentially help him with things. So I will go ahead and give him a tip. But before that, I would like to mention there is a Reaper on the way. So the thing I wanted to go ahead and teach you, Nugs, is something that I learned early on, is you have to have the mindset of, I can always afford an SCV. Unless you see a pro do something in a build order that you're following, always, always, always build SCVs. Never halt production to place something down. The reason for that is because when you halt production on SCVs, your income is going to drop. But, or it's not going to drop. I don't know how to explain it. Basically, you earn so much money per SCV, which, hold on, we have a Reaper hopping in here. Let's see how many kills we get. We have 1 kill. Oh, but we have a counter Reaper and a couple SCVs. Perfect. I would say that was the perfect amount of SCVs to pull. You could probably pull 1 or 2 just to save yourself a little bit of economy because it's a 1v1 versus another Reaper. But I think that was a really good reaction. I think you were fine. But to go back to what I was saying is every SCV gives you so much money that it feels bad to wait for the command center. Like, you really want to get that command center down, but don't stop SCV production for it to happen unless you have a very good reason. Unfortunately, though, we have 2 Reapers coming in here against Nugs, who are going to stop the natural from coming down for the time being. However, Nugs going to move into a Marine into position here. I would honestly, Nugs, in your position, probably also drop a bunker. It doesn't have to be here, but honestly, it's not a bad spot because it's by the ramp anyway. Because it's not going to take very much for these Reapers to kill that 1 Marine, and then you're in a even worse position. Luckily, though, the Knight is going to not send those up there against you, which is really good. If we go over here, we can see what Nugs has been doing, or the Knight, sorry, has been doing in the meantime. Continuing to produce Reapers. This is why, by the way, building that bunker is going to continue to be a very good idea. Because if he just all-ins these up, even with these 2 units here, they're just gonna die. And that bunker doesn't hurt you anyway, because it can be salvaged, right? You can salvage those bunkers, which will help stop this overly aggressive play that the Knight is doing. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and try to get that natural down again. Surprisingly, not seeing the Knight go in, though, which is a little confusing. Typically, if you're going to build this many Reapers, which, by the way, are pretty much purely a harass unit. You never want these in your army because they're very squishy and their DPS not great. You're going to want to invest that money that you've just spent on them in at least doing harassment. But that's okay. We have one tech lab, and then going into reactors, we have another reactor on the factory. Yeah, all reactors in one tech lab. This is pretty standard for TvT and just low-level Terran in general. All right, yep, so we sent those over, which honestly didn't really get you much done, but you got to see that the stuff was at home. As long as you're using it for that, that's fine. Now you kind of know that it's safe to move out. Unfortunately, you put the sad face. Maybe weren't expecting to see the units there. But you sent them out, you got some info, so it's not the end of the world. So with you moving out, again, you know there are a ton of Reapers out. You could salvage this now if you wanted to. You could put it like here, or if you wanted to, you could even just put it here, because now it's going to defend where he can get in at, and it's going to defend your third. But this would be in a way to play reactionary to what he's doing. If you watched my analysis of the game with Mrs. Shoeshine, that'll probably come up a little bit before this one, very macro focused. Those players are going to get very good if they continue to play and practice, because they're very macro focused. Whereas the things I'm telling you to do, by put a bunker here and this and that, it's very reactionary. So it kind of just depends on how you want to go about it. Very low SCV production. So on both sides, I think. The Knight has 33, Nugs has 26. So really, really focused on making sure those SCVs never stop building. Also, I see you rally into the gas a lot. I would avoid this. Basically, you want to have almost full saturation before building a second gas, and then whenever you go to your natural, again, you want to have almost full saturation on the minerals before going into the gas. And then honestly, whenever you decide to build the gas, just grab 3 off of the mineral line and send them over. Little things like that. This is why I think focusing on economics early is very, very important, because if you're making a ton of money and you're spending a ton of money, that means that your production is very good. It also means it's very, very hard for the opponent to deal with you, right? You just have a ton of things. Also, I'm going to teach you a hack. You see how he just scanned your natural? These are absolutely coming to your natural. Now, you can't 100% rely on that, but every time you see a scan like that, it pretty much predicts what the Terran's about to do. And as you can see, he's now going to start blasting these. So if you ever see that scan, then you know, which I don't understand the second scan, but then you know that he's about to enter either through here or up front here. You are going to try to move in to take out the Liberators. Not doing a bad job. The issue here, it probably feels impossible to deal with these right now. And the issue is not necessarily your macro, well, kind of, or your micro. It's see how much money you have. Imagine if all these minerals were in Marines right now instead of just sitting in your bank. You'd be able to deal with these like it's so easy. And I know you want to go mech, right? So even if you go mech, maybe you need to just go Marines first at the very least. Get those minerals spent. Because even when you want to do these silly builds where you go for battle cruisers and stuff, the early game, you've got to get that money spent. Because if you get that money spent, then you've got things. And when you've got things, you can then attack and defend, right? So, economic focus, SCVs. And focusing on the Knight here a little bit. Lots of Vikings. I would assume this is a reaction to seeing the battle cruisers. We have another starport being built, I am assuming, again, for more Vikings. What I would like to see from the Knight, again, look at this. SCV production, guys. Economic focus. Economic focus. The more money you have, the more money you spend. The more money you spend, the more things you have. And once you have so much stuff, it doesn't even matter what your micro looks like because you've just got more stuff. It does look like the Knight is going to move in here to attack nugsboyten. Nugs going to move out with the Marines. I'm not going to lie with you, Nugs. In this case, I wouldn't have moved out. Let your siege tanks do what they do best. If this is gonna die, let it die. Just stay up here. Now imagine if your Marines were here. Honestly, you're probably still gonna lose, but you have a much better chance if your Marines are next to the siege tanks rather than just dead down here. You did try to move the battle cruisers into defend, but instead you decided to warp them across the map, and honestly, hard respect. So we're gonna have a little bit of a base trade situation. We've got a bunch of battle cruisers going up against the Marines and Reapers of TheKnight. Battle cruisers doing what they do best and just blasting everything in the general radius. I'm interested to see what the reaction is. We do have one STV moving up here. I'm assuming to the top right of the map, because Nugs, if there's one thing Nugs is known for, it's that he doesn't give up. So I can only imagine this will inevitably be for a command center, which I'm surprised wasn't queued up immediately. STV's trying to escape, but unfortunately there's just too much DPS, and they will all go down. Battle cruisers realizing that the main threat is going to be the Vikings and moving over to take care of the starports. Nugs does get that command center down at the top right side. And so far, it doesn't quite look like the Knight is going to be trying to sneak any bases anywhere. Opting to go for a ton of missile turrets instead. Marines continuing to destroy a lot of the stuff for Nugs. What I would do, Nugs, in this situation is, I know it kind of reveals that you've got another base, but regardless, get these SCVs up there. Your SCV count matters more than you're giving it credit for currently. I think the thing you just need to keep reminding yourself is the more money you have, the more production, the more things, the more you can attack and defend, right? It all builds upon itself. The Knight did build up a fair bit of units here in the main base before moving out. Unfortunately, Nugs, a little preoccupied by typing, is going to lose some of his battle cruisers. Only one left, and it does look like that battle cruiser is going to go down. And unfortunately, Nugs just not having enough stuff. Tons of money, but not enough stuff. Good job, the Knight, for winning that game. And honestly, good job to both of you for trying to put in that APM to try to get in there and do things. But again, I would shift that APM to your economy. If your main goal is to improve, if your main goal is to have fun, you keep doing what you're doing. But those are my thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.